Look, every weekend, Americans spend $1 billion killing 5 plants growing 20 feet from their door. Chickweed, dandelion, plantain, creeping Charlie, yarrow. In the next 10 minutes, I'll walk you through what peer-reviewed labs are quietly finding about all 5. Researchers at Democritus University in Greece tracked yarrow against drug-resistant MRSA back in 2018. The reason it worked is the part nobody's talking about. There's one small preparation rule monks knew 1,200 years ago. The rule that decides whether any of this works in your kitchen. That's what I want to show you. Quick note before we start. Each of these 5 plants has look-alike species, some of which are toxic. Cross-check every identification with a local extension office or certified forager before you touch anything. I'm not a master herbalist. I'm a storyteller who dug through every peer-reviewed paper I could find on this trend. Because the comments keep asking, does any of this actually work? Here's what I found, the same way I figured it out. 3 things. 1. Which weeds the labs back up and against which infection. 2. One preparation rule that decides 10 times the effect or 0. And 3. The safety stuff your doctor would want me to say out loud. Because foraging from a sprayed lawn changes everything. No fancy tools, less guesswork. All right, let's start with the 2 you've definitely walked past this week. Number 5, chickweed. You'll see this trend on internet labeled forgotten survival food. Most videos boil it into a tea and call it a UTI cure. The labs don't say that, but they do say something quieter and more interesting. Researchers, including a 2023 paper from the Russian Academy of Sciences, isolated a defense protein in chickweed called SMD1. In the lab, research suggests it may disrupt the membranes of common urinary tract bacteria and Candida yeast under laboratory conditions at concentrations of a fraction of a milligram. That's not tea-strong. That's lab grade. To put that in context, the concentration that stopped Candida in the lab was smaller than a grain of salt dissolved in a swimming pool. The plant makes it naturally. You don't synthesize it. Here's why this matters. Chickweed quietly survives on porches and shaded paths most months of the year. Free first aid layer if you prepare it right. Takes 30 seconds to identify with your phone. No foraging book, no fancy tools. And that, if you prepare it right, is where the next plant gets even more interesting. Number 4, the dandelion. The lawn care industry's favorite villain for 30 years. We spend hundreds of millions every year on chemicals to kill it. Meanwhile, on YouTube, you'll find 1,000 videos turning it into liver detox tea, and most of them are way overselling what's in the cup. But a 2025 study out of Bani Walid University in Libya tested dandelion's sesquiterpene compounds, that's a technical word for a plant defense molecule, against staph bacteria. In a petri dish, the response landed in the same neighborhood as tetracycline. Not in your body, in glass. Still, that's not nothing. Here's the mechanism in plain terms. The sesquiterpene molecule wraps around the bacterial cell membrane the way dish soap wraps around grease. And once it does, the membrane can't hold itself together. The bacteria scatter. The petri dish clears. A viewer in Zone 6 messaged me about her grandmother's habit of brewing dandelion leaves cold overnight in a jar for general spring tonics. No medical claim, just an old family habit. When I went back to the papers, that cold infusion method was the only one that didn't destroy the active compound. Quietly, her grandma had it right. Now I know what you're thinking. A petri dish isn't a body. That's true. The MIC numbers, that's what scientists call the laboratory inhibition level, don't translate directly to a dose you swallow. So this isn't a video telling you to skip a doctor. It's a video telling you what the labs noticed. 2 weeds, 2 labs. One pattern starting to show up. But the next plant, number 3, does something the other 4 can't even attempt. It doesn't kill bacteria. It dismantles their fortress. Number 3, Creeping Charlie. The plant your neighbor curses about every June. Runs sideways under fences, mats out lawns, looks like nothing special. But this is also where the science gets genuinely strange. Most antibacterial weeds you read about online try to kill bacteria directly. Creeping Charlie doesn't. Here's why that matters. A lot of nasty infections, the ones doctors actually struggle with, aren't single bacteria floating around. They're little fortresses called biofilms. Think of a biofilm like a tiny medieval village with stone walls. Pharmaceutical antibiotics show up trying to break down the walls. Creeping Charlie's compounds, including one called durhamnolipid, don't bother with the walls. They dissolve the mortar holding the stones together. Wall falls apart, bacteria scatter. A 2017 paper in the Journal of Medicinal Chemistry from Snerovic's team in Belgrade measured exactly how much Creeping Charlie extract it took to dismantle Pseudomonas biofilms. Even more interesting, when you combine that extract with erythromycin, a generic antibiotic, the dose needed dropped by about 75%. $50 of pharma got matched by what's basically free in your yard. Here's the calmer way to think about it. You don't need to forage anything to use this knowledge. Most extension offices will identify Creeping Charlie for free if you snap a phone photo. Once you can recognize it, just stop pulling it from the shadier edges of your yard. Step 1 is awareness. Takes no tools. One of my subscribers, a retired biology teacher in Ohio, sent me her own kitchen experiment. She kept the boiled Creeping Charlie tea every internet recipe told her to make, and ran a basic potato blight test against a cold glycerin tincture she'd let sit on her counter for a week. The cold tincture cleared the test plate. The boiled tea did absolutely nothing. Same plant, same garden. Wildly different result. And it's not the plant doing the work. It's how she pulled the compound out of it. Now you might be wondering, isn't this just essential oils? Honest answer? No. Essential oils strip out 1 or 2 compounds at high concentration. What we're talking about is a low-temperature, whole plant extraction. Different chemistry, different goal, and way harder to mess up at home. If you're still with me, here's what's coming. Number 2 completely flipped what I thought I knew about antibiotic resistance. It's not a killer. It's a backup. And number 1, yarrow, is the one where the labs stop talking about bacteria entirely and start talking about your own immune system. Let me show you. Number 2, plantain, not the banana. The little green rosette with 5 vertical veins on every leaf, growing right next to your driveway. Here's the twist that surprised me most. By itself, plantain isn't a knockout against MRSA. And MRSA is the antibiotic-resistant staph everyone's worried about. The lab numbers are okay, not amazing. But add plantain's main compound, a cumin, alongside an old beta-lactam antibiotic, and something quiet happens. A 2025 UNESP Botucatu study in Brazil found that adding plantain extract restored the effectiveness of cephalothin and oxacillin, antibiotics that MRSA had basically stopped responding to. The plant didn't replace the drug. It reopened the door for the drug to work again. That's a fundamentally different way to think about backyard pharmacy. Which brings us to number 1. Yarrow. The feathery little plant with flat-topped white flower clusters grows along roadsides everywhere. The Greeks named it after Achilles 2,000+ years ago, and the science says they were paying attention. Anglo-Saxon field medics in the 9th century carried yarrow as their primary wound herb, not because of tradition, but because it worked. The Leech Book of Bald described cold preparation specifically. They didn't know why. The 2018 Democritus study does.
Yarrow doesn't just kill bacteria. The 2018 Democritus University study in Greece found that yarrow's rosemarinic acid does something none of the other 4 weeds do. It talks to your own immune cells, specifically the macrophages that hunt bacteria. Yarrow primes them to do their job better. So it's not really a backyard antibiotic. It's a backyard coach for the antibiotic your body already has. Okay, and now the rule. The one preparation thing 99% of viral, natural antibiotic videos quietly miss. Almost every active compound in these 5 plants, aucubin, rosemarinic acid, the chickweed defensin, the saponins, falls apart at standard boiling water temperatures. Around 60 to 70 degrees Celsius is the line. Boil it, and you get colored water with almost none of the actual chemistry left. Cold steep it overnight, or fat extract it in low-heat oil, and you keep the compound intact. Same weed, 10 times the effect, or 0. The lost knowledge isn't the plant, it's the prep. Before the recipe, one non-negotiable note. Keep any tincture or extract out of reach of children. These plants are natural, but concentrated extracts are not safe for pets or kids to consume directly. If you have dogs, they can walk around the yard fine. Just don't let anyone chew directly on unidentified plants. Grab a pen, write this down. So what does that actually look like in your kitchen? Forget about boiling. Drop fresh plantain or yarrow leaves into a jar of room temperature vodka or apple cider vinegar. Seal it. Stick it in a dark cabinet for 2 weeks. Strain. That's it. For chickweed and creeping Charlie, the calmer root is olive oil in a double boiler kept below 70 degrees. That's a thermometer's job, not yours. No fancy tools. But here's the non-negotiable safety part, and I'll be direct with you. Wild plants from a roadside, a chemically treated lawn, or near a parking lot have absorbed pesticides and heavy metals. Don't use those. If anyone in your house is pregnant, immunocompromised, or under 12, skip self-application entirely. And nothing in this video replaces a doctor. Use this knowledge alongside modern medicine, never instead of it. 5 weeds, 1 rule. The kind of knowledge that doesn't make anyone rich, which might be why it never quite made it into a commercial. Now the only question left is what you do with it on Saturday morning when the sprayer comes out. That's the trend, filtered down. Chickweed and dandelion, the labs quietly back up. Creeping Charlie, dismantling biofilms. Plantain, bringing antibiotics back from the brink. Yarrow, tuning up your own immune system. And 1 preparation rule deciding whether any of it works. 1 less thing to guess about. And to make it as easy as possible for you, I've put together a completely free gift. I call it the Ultimate Container Garden Success Guide. It includes the exact soil recipes we talked about today, plus a printable plant care and harvest log. You can use it to track your watering, mark your compost tea schedule, and remember your harvest dates so you don't have to keep it all in your head. Just click the first link in the description below, print it out, and keep it by your watering can. Your neighbors will ask what you're doing out there. Tell them you stopped fighting your yard. If you'd like me to keep digging through these trends for you, subscribing helps a lot. Tell me in the comments which of these 5 plants is growing in your yard right now. Happy gardening!